I don't ever doubt myself. I can count on no one else, and I do not need your help. I was told to show, not tell, so watch me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am Spartan Anarchist, and with me today, going over some changes to a bit better Warframes than we covered in the last episode. Mode is SparkEntity.
Heyo.
Today, we will be at the start. In this episode, we will be going over the changes that I feel can happen to Excalibur. This is the build I will be using to showcase the frame. As you can see, there are going to be no arcanes, and there is no helmet ability, except for that I subsumed Radial Blind onto this slot just to showcase the actual base Excalibur. So, then the weapons we will be using are the Soma Prime, using this build, the Jadara Prime using this build, and the Nintana Prime using this build. Anyways, now let's go over the changes to Excalibur I feel can happen. First, let's go over his first ability as it stands. His first ability is Slash Dash, which when you hit, which you charge forward and you have iframes during it, so you cannot take damage, and you move forward, hitting the enemies with it. Important note is Slash Dash also takes into account is a pseudo exalted, so like Tor's Whip, Gar is 1, Atlas is 1. It scales off of any mods, any standard mods that you may have on it. So like give me a second. So like on Excalibur's 1, any damage bonds on your Warframe or any physical damage mons, aka like, well, any damage mons, so like pressure point, steel charge, any physical damage increasing mons like jagged edge, stuff like that, and any elemental mods do take into account, along with weapon augments such as Justice Blades. So the change to his one that I feel can happen is fairly simple. As you can see against level, I believe these are level 50. Yeah, against level 50 butchers, it did good damage, but not that much. So the change to his one that I feel can take place is his one I feel in its turn state is fine as is. It does what it needs to do. It's not really about doing a lot of damage, in my opinion. It's more about using it to move and gain iframes, so like a get out button basically. And especially early game, it does do reasonable enough damage early game, even with the basic mods you can get. As you can see sometimes on my Warframe free-to-play through. Funnily enough, this is one of the abilities I use a lot of the time to do good amounts of damage in early game on that account. So with that, we now then his augment for his one, which is Surging Dash, which currently what Surging Dash does is each enemy hit during Slash Dash will increase your melee combo counter by 4. That is basically useless because you wouldn't want to use a Warframe mod slot to do that. Anyways, and for that reason, we will I feel something that can change with his first augment is instead of make it so you gain a combo count, make it so per enemy you hit, you gain a 10x% ability strength increase, where X is the number of enemies you hit. So say you hit like 5 enemies, you then for like 10 seconds will gain a 50% ability strength buff, which I feel is totally fair. Spark, your opinions on that?
Yeah, I think augment for his one is another case. Augment is too trash to waste a. I
The funny
definitely.
thing is it's the better of the two.
Yeah, that's often how it goes. There's usually one augment. There are augments that are worth a lot, either because they bring so much utility to the ability,
Yeah,
or they actually make the ability usable on a lot
yeah,
of frames. But like, I definitely think adding a buff of any kind, like preferably ability strength, but like a buff of any kind, um, definitely make that
yeah.
augment doing.
Well, I
It's,
don't want to add the melee damage buff. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I don't know, you're fine. Uh, Flash Dash is one of those abilities that's like never really expected to kill an enemy, but it's like one of those flashy utility abilities. Got iframes, great for ability and things like that. Getting out of a bad situation quickly.
Yeah, it's
Um,
straight out of jail.
yeah, yeah, like you said. So it's like any augments on it that do anything like ability strength be a cherry on top.
Yeah. And I don't want to add a melee damage buff because that, funnily enough, super like that invades the territory I feel his third augment has. So I don't want to be invading on that property.
Yeah,
Anyways, now let's go over his two. And for this, I'm going to reset the enemies, unpause AI, and simulate. His two, what it does is simply put, it freezes everybody. And that was radial how. If you give me a second, I will go change to conf. There we go. There's the ability config I wanted. His two, what it does is it does that. And you also, which opens enemies to finishers, which is actually really important. And it's easily castable, meaning you can just go do that. Or if you really wanted to, you could just, kill them. Like they're frozen in place. They're not going to do anything. And the blind does last for a considerable duration. It's not the best, but I would use it from time. Like it is a very nice ability.
yeah. Like the blind duration is great, but like even if it runs out, it's quick ability to cast and
Yeah.
like the energy cost on it as well. I've never felt is too low or too high.
Yeah. And due to that, there are no changes happening to his 2, neither his 2 or his 2 augment, because his two's augment is actually really nice because it provides you, go to augments, it provides you 300% more finisher damage, but let's just real quick replace my chromatic blade real quick on this build. As you can see, that finisher damage increase is affected by your current ability strength, meaning you can get that to ridiculous numbers.
That can be that can be an insta kill on even like the heaviest armored.
Yeah, so like it's a good augment if you're focusing more on like a finish per build, or like say you have a ribbon that you need to get finishers with. You just put that on and nothing and lives. Anyways, so now his third ability. Oh god, his third ability. That's what his third ability does. Note, this can only advance hit 12 enemies. So first change is removing the enemy hit trap so that it can hit, like say it just hits all enemies within its range because there's no reason he should have a trap on it. And the next change is, if you give me a second, is have it so give it scaling damage. So per enemy it hits, like when it hits in it, like when you cast it, depending on how many enemies it will hit, it gains a 5x damage per enemy you hit. Damage increase. So like say I hit 3 enemies, I would gain a 15 times damage multiplier, because I'm sure both of us agree that it's damage in even in like early mid game doesn't do anything.
Yeah, if
Like
an
past level 20.
yeah, if an enemy like above level 15, not gonna kill it.
I would say above level 20.
Yeah, I'd say that.
It does do good damage against level 15s from time to time, but depending on how heavily armored they are. But like any
Yeah,
Grineer unit pretty much is not going to, above level 20 will not.
that's also dependent
Like,
on your ability strength where it falls off,
well, like,
but it
yeah,
does
but
fall
like,
off very quick.
yeah, and like I don't have bad ability strength on this, and this is a typical build, and it didn't even do half damage to a level 50 corrupted butcher.
Yeah.
Like, sure, it stuns them for a short period of time, but like you have your 2 for this. Which his 2 actually takes less time to cast than his 3, and less energy.
Yeah.
And if that's anybody within range instead of just a, a bleak number. So, and now his 4. His 4 is, well, Exalted Blade. What it does is you summon your Exalted Blade, and it does this. It like, it does fall off, like, at higher levels, I will say. It just aren't amazing, because it will fall off at the higher levels. But like it has good energy consumption and all of that. Like it does do amazing, but at higher levels it's not going to do that as much as like a regular melee for one reason. You cannot use the Acolyte mods, such as like you can't use mods like Blood Rush or like Weeping Wounds on it. So like you're scaling into higher level enemies and higher armored enemies versus a, and sure, I don't have an amazing build on this, as you can see, but like your build builds are, it's actually inferior to a lot of the more powerful melees in the game, simply because it can't use those scaling and it costs energy.
I know between like the build that I use to focus and my Exalted Blade runs viral, and that definitely helps it.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a bad. I'd say it's one of the better exalted abilities. Like it does do damage, it can kill things. And then for general content, it will do you just fine. But like if you're in Steel Path, you should just be using your, if you have one of the, you should just be using the good melee instead of it, and focusing more on your 2. Like his
Yeah,
4 is useful.
it will. It's one of those things where it's like, and this happens a lot with abilities, whether it's an exalted or not. General content, it can wipe really easily, but when you start getting half content where it thing just becomes a bullet sponge,
Yeah.
effectively, um, it really lowers Like, Exalted Blade will kill shit. Even in late game steel path. Like, it'll do the job. But it's going to take progressively more hits and more time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and another
you
thing,
are better off just using, you know, good old Heavy Blade or Nikana or something.
yeah. Especially on Excalibur, since like if you're using like the Nintana Prime on Excalibur, you're gaining a 10% with his passive, you're gaining a 10% damage and attack speed buff there.
Yeah.
So like you're not doing bad damage. So yeah, that honestly, the only change to his 4 I would say is allow it to use those mons because it already costs energy versus a regular melee. So just allow it to use those mons,
Yeah.
and it will be good.
I mean, it works. Like, it builds up. Like, if you actually hit an enemy with the sword, you'll build up.
Yeah.
Build up a combo count.
Yeah, and like that's why a lot of people who use like if you're using Excalibur, that's why you'll generally use Venture Prime, so like you can have a 13 times combo multiplier for that reason. But even so, that's like at that point, why not just you're already using your melee to build it up. Just use your melee at that point, honestly.
That's
And I love Excalibur.
yeah, we both do.
Yeah.
We're
And
not
I have
biased here.
Yeah, no, like I'm not going to lie. If you're wanting to use an exalted frame in Steel Path and you're wanting to have its exalted weapon be effective, use Baruch.
Yeah. Good old Sandboy.
Yeah. But if you're doing general content, use Excalibur by far because Baruch doesn't have the space in a lot of general content to you build up his restraint meter so you can use his 4.
Yeah, definitely. It's another thing with a lot of these abilities, like setup.
Yeah, if it's good, it has a gimmick. Because we all know DE, they can't make it so they can't make it so the exalted frames melees are actually good melees,
Yeah.
as in the meta. Uh, but that's the changes I'd suggest for Excalibur's 4. Anyways, so that's and now we're going to end it here. So thank for the people over on the YouTube side, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy. Have a safe time, and I'll see you next time.
Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah, things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let any